Hi, welcome back to Drafting 263 3D CAD. We are going to go ahead and go through Chapter 6. And Chapter 6 introduces us to a couple of really neat tools, rib and shell. The rib feature adds material, kind of like a shelf. The shell feature removes material and leaves just the shell behind. It's kind of like hollowing out a mold. Very useful, very nice tools. And we are going to go ahead and get started. So let me give you my screen and I will show you what we are going to build. And what we're going to build is this sort of mold. It's hollowed out from the top and from the bottom. And we're going to use the rib and shell features to make this happen. So let's go ahead and get started with a new sketch, rather a new part. I'm going to change my dimensions into IPS, and I'm going to make that plain white. Okay, now starting on page 6-3, we're going to draw on the top plane and open a new sketch. And now we want to make a rectangle that is centered about the origin. So in order to do that, we're going to use the rectangle, but we're going to use this center rectangle. And we're going to make sure our center starts at the origin, and we click, and then we drag out to make our rectangle, and we click again. Let's go ahead and add our dimensions. We want our rectangle to be 10 inches long, 5 inches wide. And that has fully defined my rectangle, but I'm not done yet, because if you notice, I've got rounded edges. And the way we make those rounded edges is with these sketch fillets. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to round that edge, or that corner, and that one, and that one, and that one. And my sketch tells me that I want these to be 1/2 inch radius curves. And there we go. There is my rectangle. I'm just playing with my dimensions a little bit. Okay. Now we're going to extrude this. So we're going to go back out to features, and we're going to extrude it boss. We're going to do a couple of things different here. We're going to extrude this down, so we want to reverse the direction. We are going to use a blind condition. We're going to make it 2 inches. But we are also going to put a little flare on this, and that's what this draft outward option gives for us. Now you notice right now it's drafting inward, and you can see as I increase that angle, it kind of pulls those edges in. Okay, we are going to put in a 5-degree draft, and we're going to draft outward. So that makes it flare out. Okay, so a 5-degree draft out, 2 inches deep, downward. We are good. We're going to click OK. And there's my basic. Now I'm going to add in some side cutouts. And I'm going to do this on the front plane with a new sketch. And I am going to put my view normal to that. The first thing I'm going to do is we see that we've got a symmetric condition there. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my center line. Okay. Now that's kind of a trapezoid there, so I'm just going to sketch in a trapezoid. We want the top line to be coincident with the top of our shape. And I'm not going to worry too much about the shape because I'm going to get that when I put in my relations. So let's put in some dimensions. I want this line to be 5 inches long. I want the distance from here, from the top to the bottom, to be 1/2 inch. And I want the angle between the slanted side and the horizontal to be 45 degrees. And you can see that that doesn't look very much like the sketch yet, or yeah, the shape we're supposed to be making. But now let's go ahead and select this line, hold down the control key and the center line and the other edge, and we're going to put in a symmetric relation. And that fixed it. And it also fully defined my sketch. I'm going to play with my dimensions just a little bit so they look nicer. And we now have our sketch on the front plane. And we are going to extrude this extruded cut through all in both dimensions. So I'm going to put my three-dimensional view back on. We're going to go through all. Now through all would just make it go backwards, or I could reverse that to go forwards. But if I go through all in both directions, that does exactly what it sounds like. It goes through all from in both directions. And that's all we need to do, so we're just going to cut that out. Okay, now we're going to remove a little bit more material here. So I'm going to select this top face and open a new sketch. And what I want to do is I want to select these outer edges. So I'm going to select this one, and I'm holding down the control key while I click on each edge individually. And now in my sketch, I'm going to offset from the selected edges. I'm going to offset 1/4 inch. And you can see that goes out. I want in, so I'm going to reverse that direction, and I'm going to just say OK. Now I'm going to just go ahead and do that again on the other side. There are probably other options, but for this simple operation, this is just as quick. And it lets us practice using offset. 1/4 inch, but we want it to go in. Okay. Now we really want this to all be one thing, so I'm going to grab that endpoint and drag it to the other end. And you can see that that merges those lines. And now we're going to extrude this whole shape all the way down through. Not all the way through, but we're going to extrude it most of the way through. So what we're going to do is extrude, but instead of blind, we're going to choose an offset from surface. And the surface we're going to offset from is actually the bottom. So I'm going to turn this thing upside down so that I can see the bottom face. And I'm going to select that. And I'll go back to my favorite view. And my offset now. So this dimension here is now the dimension that I want to be offset from the bottom face. So this is the material I'm going to leave. So I'm going to leave 1/4 inch. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm removing everything except for 1/4 inch of material. And I'm also going to do a draft with 5 degrees, but we're going to let this draft 5 degrees inward. So we're going to leave a little bit more material on the outer edges than we do in the middle. And I'm going to say, OK. And there we are. There's my basic shell. Almost looks like a little tray to put a cell phone in. Okay, now we want to create some rib profiles. And these rib profiles are going to be, the top of them are going to be level with this face here. And there are a couple of different ways we could get there. We could draw on this bottom face and then extrude up to this face. But let's try something new. Let's try drawing in a plane parallel to this face here. So what we're going to do is we're going to select this face and new sketch. And I'm going to make my view normal to this so that I can draw more easily. But before I extrude it, we'll look at it in 3 dimensions so you can see what's going on. So what's actually happening is we're actually drawing in midair on a plane parallel to the face that I selected. So I am putting in some center lines here because I'm going to need them. And I'm going to go ahead and put in my circle, centered about that cross section right there. And I'm going to put in my lines, my quadrant lines, so they go from quadrant point to quadrant point, horizontally and vertically. And I'm going to go ahead now and put in my dimensions here. And this guy is a 3 1/4 inch circle. And I've got a couple more lines to put in. So I'll do that now. I've got a line that goes vertically from this edge on the inside to the opposite side on the inside. Now, I've avoided the center points because I don't really want to put in a relation that locks me into those center points. And say OK. Now I'm going to set the distance from the center of my circle to this line as 3.125 inches. And now I'm going to put in a symmetric relation between that line, my center line, and this line. Make them symmetric. Say OK. And that did not fully define my sketch, which is weird. Because I'm not seeing anything blue. Okay, let's take a look at this in 3 dimensions, and you can see that I have drawn in thin air above that space. And I'm going to let SolidWorks fully define this one. Maybe I'm going to. What have I got going on there? Okay. We're going to fully define the sketch. We're just going to let it do all entities. It's not always a good idea, but I'm not sure why it wasn't defined, so we're going to do it that way. Oh, I see why. Okay, we're going to undo that. And the issue is this line right here is not referenced to that circle. Nope, that didn't do it either. I've got something going on there. Let's see if I can delete that point. Nope. Let's try this line. got something there. There, found it. Okay, now let's try putting it. Somehow I had a little point there that shouldn't have been there. Go from here with this line to here, here to there. Click, say, okay. There we go. Now we're fully defined. Let's zoom back out to extents. Sorry about that. Okay, looking in 3 dimensions. Excellent. Let's get on with the extrusion. So we are going to actually put in ribs. And you can see we're working on the sketch we just made. We're going to turn that sketch into ribs that are 1/4 inch thick and are normal to our sketch. You can also make them parallel to your sketch. We want them to have a draft of 5 degrees. That means they're going to get 5 degrees, get fatter at a rate of 5 degrees as they go down. And they're getting fatter because we've selected draft outward. If we had let them draft inward, they would have gotten thinner. And now we're going to click OK. And there we've got our ribs. Let's go ahead and save this thing. I'm going to save it as drafting 263 Chapter 6 Rib and Shell. And we are almost done. We just need to add some fillets here and here. So I'm selecting these little edges. I almost think of them as the little horizontal cutout things. Those guys, all 8 of them, 4 on each side. And I want those to be 1/2 inch fillets. And that's my preview looks good, so I'm going to hit OK. And now we want to add some 1/8 inch fillets everywhere else except for the bottom edges. And so here's what we're going to do. We're going to look at the front. We're going to change our view to a front side view. I'm going to select fillet. And now I'm going to use, make sure I've got the box menu selected, or box method selected. So I right-clicked in the plane, and I'm going to use box selection. And I'm going to now select everything except those bottom edges. And we're going to let the computer work for a minute, because what it is doing is selecting all of those edges. And I'm going to change this to a 0.125 or 1/8 inch fillet. And just take a quick look and make sure that it's got everything I want. And it does. And so we're going to say OK. I'm going to wait a minute. Here we go. And now what we're going to do, I'm going to save this real quick. We're almost done, but we've got a lot of wasted material. In other words, we've got, if we look, we've got a solid bottom, and depending on what we're doing, we might not need that solid bottom. So let's go ahead and take out that bottom face. And we can do that by looking at the bottom. And I'm going to select that face. And we are going to shell that out. And we are going to leave 8 1/100ths or 0.080 inches of material. And we're going to click OK. And what it's done is SolidWorks knows that what we meant was to remove all the material along the contours of what we had on the inside and just leave 8/100ths of an inch of material. And there we have our ribbed and shelled tray. Let's save that. And that is all that there is, I believe, in Chapter 6. Oh, nope, there's another activity using shell and mirror. I will do that in a separate video. No, I won't, because I actually think I assigned that one. Let's check real quick. I do believe that there were not any exercises. So, in Chapter 6, yes, if we look at the Chapter 6 core shell, which is where I'm at, this is the eCompanion shell, which you clearly know how to get to because that's where you found the video. Probably it's where you found the video. You can see Chapter 6 exercise. I asked you to complete the exercise on page 611. So go ahead and complete this styrofoam box and save it to the course Dropbox for this chapter. And I will talk to you again soon.